The end goal is always to be able to express yourself creatively. I think that definitely looks different for a lot of different people.
In bars and clubs, I think that to evolve and develop, you need to provide the right platform to learn and to grow.
Being able to nurture that creative talent through education, it's a challenge that's maybe not present in like day-to-day business.
If our team are working in the very experimenting environment, it will make them more creative.
Creativity comes from so many different places, and I think without that, bartending can't exist.
No business survives by being stagnant, by constantly doing the same thing again and again and again. So it's important that as teams grow, as companies scale, you still have to find a way of providing a space where risk-taking and creativity can occur. My name is Brian Buirge. I am the owner, co-founder, creative director, and chief janitor of Good Fucking Design Advice, which is also known as GFDA. We go into companies, corporations, businesses, agencies, studios, and we work with creative teams and we help them to develop their culture so that people can feel comfortable bringing their best creative self to work all the time. People need to evolve and to challenge themselves. It's a rewarding experience, but also just from a business sense, it's like you need to be coming up with new ideas and new approaches. And so fostering that kind of culture and that environment where creativity can thrive is immensely important.
It's very important to maintain the experimental vibes in our bar because when the customer, they walked in, they can feel what we're trying to deliver to them. I'm always teach our team to be themselves by creating the enthusiast environment. So I think they can develop themselves in a natural way. My name is Taln Rojanavanich. I'm from Messenger Service Bar and Bar Us, which is based in Bangkok. I'm the founder and bar manager of both places. Messenger Service is my first place that we opened the cocktail bar. So this place is like my experimenting place. It's my playground. And at Bar Us, we're trying to make everything more conceptual. From my background, I am a product designer and also an interior designer. So I start the bar with zero background from F&B. So I think 100% self-taught. I have never joined any class or any competition. So I was learning by read the method. I'm trying to twist a bit to make it work in my way. Education can be taught by an experience. I also want my team to think the same because it's the best way that they can think outside the box.
But being a good craftsman means also to have an understanding of the foundations, and that's, to me, essential. And from there on, you can build on creativity. My name is Philip Bischoff, and I'm the beverage manager here at the Four Seasons at Chao Phraya River in Bangkok. And I'm looking after everything that's liquid in the hotel. And then I have the chance to look after this beauty behind me, the Bangkok Social Club. This is Michele. He's the restaurant manager of Riva. This is the first restaurant I'm going to show everyone. It's our Italian restaurant. So now we're heading to Brasserie Pamir, our casual French brasserie concept. One of my favorite places in a hotel. Love to sit here, just enjoy a good dish by Chef Nicolas. Café Madeleine, also one of my almost daily favorites. Outside the bar, this water feature. We're very surprised that so far no one out of the bar actually fell into the water. To me, the most important in the beginning was to set a foundation and get the basics right. Making sure that everyone has an understanding for balance and for concepts within the outlet. So when we speak about Italian beverage program, the focus was on giving a framework for Italian products, Italian drinking culture, whereas the lobby lounge was the little bit more local approach, and then the bar with the Argentinian approach that kind of gave the framework for the creativity that we wanted to achieve. And once that's established, then we want to progress and want to move on and become more and more creative.
I do think it's an important part of, if you are in a leadership role, to be able to identify people that want to take the next step, putting them in spaces where they can exercise that creative muscle and be able to have a little bit of flexibility in showcasing their own style. I'm Alexis Belton. I am the beverage director at Metropolis by Marcus Samuelson in downtown New York at APAC NYC. So my role here is to develop a beverage program at Metropolis, which pairs well with the food, that is sticking to classics, simple flavors, and then showcasing a little bit of creativity as well.
This is actually the restaurant. I do want to direct you to the light schematics in the ceiling. This restaurant was designed by David Rockwell. His light schematics are pretty famous in New York City. This is going to be the bar. So here's where all of the magic is going to happen. This is going to be our kitchen space at APAC. So right now we are back of house or behind the scenes. It looks a little glamorous right now because there's not a bunch of bodies speeding around, but this is kind of where the restaurant's going to operate.
My career, so I took a job at the Aviary, and I was there for about 8 years. The Aviary had a speakeasy downstairs, which is called The Office. And while the Aviary was a very specific set menu of items, The Office was a space where there was a lot of dealer's choice, a lot of space to maneuver between different flavor profiles and spirits, and essentially playing off of what the guest wants to experience. And so sometimes we would identify people that their next step would be to enter down into the office and to work one-on-one, sometimes with a manager, and learn how to understand the process of building drinks and how they can begin to manipulate those to become their own.
You don't want somebody that becomes very comfortable staying in the areas in which they know really well. Creativity is finding something new to bring to the table that wasn't there previously. My philosophy is you want to hire people that are better than you, and you want to find people that have strengths that you don't. And I think a lot of times people, when they're hiring, there's an insecurity that happens. There's a little bit of an ego thing that happens. And so they want to be the ones that are in charge. And they also sometimes want to hire people that are not as strong because maybe they'll stick around longer. But that's not kind of my philosophy, and I don't think that that's a good long-term strategy. I think the good long-term strategy is to bring people in that are brilliant and better than you, and to nurture them so you're getting the best of the best. Maybe they're only with you for 3 months, maybe they're with you for 3 years, maybe they stick around for 10 years, but it doesn't matter, because that enthusiasm and passion that hopefully that person has is good in the long run for the company, even though it may be difficult from time to time that, you know, your best talent ultimately ends up going somewhere else. It's better to have the best talent than to settle for subpar and then, you know, kind of drag it along.
Me and my partner, we opened a small hostel. Everything starts from that place. Like half of my staff, they used to work as a front receptionist at the hostel. I'm open to everyone who wants to work in the bar, but you have to have 100% of the passion, and it will create the creativity after that.
When it comes down to hiring someone, creativity would not be a KO criteria, because I believe everyone has a different degree of creativity, and it will come out at some point. We have people who have never worked in the same environment, who've never worked in that kind of hotel bar. In the past, I hired people from retail, and they became great waiters, but also great creative people. So it depends on how we can guide them and give them the tools on hand to become creative.
There are people out there that will literally, they could step into a bar, any bar, look at the back bar and whip something up that's just fabulous. And I'm always just like, dang it, like, how do you do this? You have such a force, you are so creative. And I wish you knew how to put together an Excel spreadsheet. I love creative people, and I think that there's always room for a couple on a team. But I do tend to lean towards hiring people that want to build structure a little bit more, or can take your work and execute it properly, and then can find holes in that and maybe make suggestions to make things better, whether it is a system or a cocktail.
You have a lot of idea, but it cannot make it in the reality. It's useless for me. The idea and structure have to go along together. Creativity, for me, is the most important thing. I want to build a team with the open-minded people, but I'm trying to make that an idea to be touchable.
Ideally, you have people who are able to follow the lead and kind of handle instructions as they are given and execute, but also you wish for people who are maybe a little bit outside the box and think a little bit different and give you creative feedback or move a little bit in advance in the framework given. Also, you don't want a rebel, but you want someone who is kind of constantly creative and driving new ideas. If someone just works off things that are given, you might go in one direction and that might be successful for a certain amount of time. But especially in our industry these days, creativity becomes bigger and bigger and guests become more and more excited to try new things. So there's almost no chance to sleep on creativity.
But I think that you have to look at what that creativity is versus what the role of that bar is. I've run into people who are like, hey, I'm okay if I never put a drink on your menu. I'm okay if I'm in the background here and I make sure that this part of the program runs well. I can be in charge of prep and I can execute your recipes properly. And to some people, that might be a creative outlet, is to be able to execute somebody else's recipes. I do think that it is very important to foster creativity, but I think that that leaves a lot of room for what that looks like for different people.
I think everyone is creative in one way or the other, and some are amazing in creating recipes, but maybe storytelling is not the strength. Some are great in savory drinks, some are great in sweet drinks, some are great in flavor extraction or thinking constantly about new flavor combinations. So it's over the time finding out who is good at what, and you try to evolve those talents and kind of give support in those directions. The biggest part of identifying strengths, weaknesses, talents is listening to the team.
So right now in GFDA, what we're focused on as a company is promoting that mission of helping people to bring their best creative self forward. With our workshops, one of the things that we had found early on was at the end of the workshop constantly, we would have people come up that were the quietest people and say, thank you for giving me that opportunity. I wouldn't have done that on my own. I wouldn't have done that in the work environment. Like, this day just set up that experience for me. We get feedback, a week, 2 months after talking to leadership. They're like, so-and-so was the quietest person on the team. They never go out for lunch. They never do this. They're always, got their headphones on. But all of a sudden, like, creating this environment for those people that have personality traits where they're a little bit more shy or whatever, it can really transform the output of a team.
So I think what initially led me to goal setting, not just with myself, but with staff members and team members, is that it's something that I did not get. I've had mentors, don't get me wrong, and I've had some really great ones, but I think a lot of times mentorship is based on the person that is teaching somebody else. And for me, I need a lot of structure because I need to be able to see what the next step is or what I've accomplished and therefore what I can continue to do. That's kind of how my brain works. So I think that's ultimately where this idea came from. And as it's been applied to past team members, I think that we do find that people do latch onto this because it gives them a little bit of control over where they want to be, how they get there, and how long it takes them to get there. And it also helps them maneuver when there are roadblocks, when they might be switching jobs to go do something else, a new manager comes in. I think that having that structure of goal setting helps them be able to take a roadblock, process it, and then figure out how to move around it because they know where they're ultimately supposed to be.
If you say everything is open all the time, it's like you just don't know where to start. You don't know what to pick. But as soon as you start introducing some degree of constraints, like that gives you something to anchor to. Certainly one of the systems that you can put in place to channel creativity is a deadline. And like most creatives that I know, myself included, deadlines it's like you're just waiting and, trying different things. And then it's always kind of this last minute push because shit, the deadline's there. So it's got to be done.
I think the deadline is the time that you have to finalize your idea. And most of the time, the one that you choose, it's always the first idea that you comes up. So I think the deadline helps. It helps. But sometimes in the another situation, it don't have to be the deadline. I'm kind of chill, laid back. I don't like to work in the forced situation. During the service, like someone comes up with an idea. If we have a viable time at that time, okay, let's do it. Why not? Because the idea is very fresh. I don't like to store the idea for a long time. If the idea comes up, it comes up. So that's why my menu is run by number. I cannot like fix my idea. It can be just only 10. I don't want to make it that way. So that's why my idea is like, I want to expand a lot of idea and put in the menu.
Hospitality is not a 9 till 5, but that's the execution on the floor, and it's kind of a lifestyle. Creativity happens sometimes throughout the shift, and then it's on us to kind of give you the opportunity to remain creative, regardless how busy it is. The hotel is a very F&B driven hotel, so guests are well traveled, so they see things in different hotels in different countries. So we do not have a choice but evolve and be kind of constantly looking for upgrades, new things. So we have to embed that in our daily routines in one way or the other. So it's more about how can we really create time slots for the team to be creative. That's the biggest challenge, but it's part of the game.
I think about who I am and how, my journey and where I've come from and how I've gotten here. I started as a runner, so I ran food and drinks. I graduated to an expediting position, eventually was promoted to head bartender and then into a bar director position. And I realized that I don't think that I could have strictly done that with just a creative touch, because there has to have been organization, there has to have been a lot of things that play into the other half of what it means to, I guess, be a beverage director, run a beverage program, put a menu together.
For our menu, we use the ingredients as the main concept first. And then everything that comes after is very natural. Now we developing the new drinks, which creating from a lime leaf. It's the common ingredients, but not much people use the leaf. So a lot of people use the lime peel, but the leaf give another hint of aroma. It's very nice. We love it. But I think like we might add a little bit more of the lime leaf. Nice. Thank you. Okay, so this version, we pairing lime leaf with the broth and a little bit of the bitter liqueur. So it should be the spirit-forward drinks, but the citrusy will be in the lime leaf that we already put inside the drinks. Yeah, very nice. How's it? You like it? This can be in our menu. Everyone can come up with an idea of the ingredients. If they was eating a noodles and they come to me like, why not we put the bone broth into the drinks? Okay, let's do it. Here we are in a Chinatown, which I have a lot of inspiration from the flavor profile of the food. When we making the cocktails, we trying to combining the flavor by the Asian taste. So it's a sweet, sour, salty combining, which is similar as the Asian food.
We're here at Haven Mar in Chelsea, New York, where most of the R&D for Metropolis will be happening. The restaurant is undergoing its final inspections, and in the meantime, working kitchen and bar are pretty imperative to getting R&D done. I'm in the process of having to write a menu. I just like to have a lot of information kind of come at me all at once, and I might spend a couple hours on the internet watching YouTube videos, on Instagram, I'll see a color that I love, I'll see a glass shape that I love, I'll see a texture that looks interesting, and I will sometimes start there and then start to work backwards. My favorite example lately is this gentleman was talking about this drink that he created in which he layered this cold coffee drink with a warm coconut foam over top, and I was immediately inspired. I said, wow, that's so cool. I took it to my husband for like a second opinion, I guess you would say, and then we were like, how can we do something similar? And we started talking about the season of fall, what kind of coffee cocktails exist out there, what do people drink with coffee? And he goes, pumpkin spice lattes. And I was like, yes, this is so great. And I was like, now how do we elevate this? And so there was like this 30 to 45 minute conversation that started with a video of something somebody had already created. And I have now like 4 different variations on how I want to possibly accomplish this. And so now the next stage is going to be R&D, but like that creative process to get there, it wasn't just one person. I didn't just dream this up. I was inspired by somebody else and then had a second opinion on this idea. And typically if you are doing something, it's probably been done before, and I'm okay with that. Give credit where credit is due and say that like, I am inspired and my creativity comes from different avenues, and sometimes it's coming from something that's already been done.
We have some senior bartenders and some bartenders, some who joined very newly. And when it comes down to creating menus, then it is a little bit the responsibility of the senior staff to kind of step forward and create, but also take the younger team members along the journey to involve them into the creative process. Sometimes ideas are great, sometimes they need to be twisted and tweaked. And then it's more about what if, how would you? So very suggestive, kind of giving feedback and trying to ignite another thought process. I would never say that's wrong or it doesn't work. It's more like, okay, what if we would choose this one instead of this one? Have you tried this one? And sometimes maybe my idea is wrong and someone else comes up with a much more great idea or way.
From the leadership or the educator role, it's a really rewarding experience because if you're doing that job properly, you're not controlling the outcomes of what happens with your students. They're going to bring their own personal experiences and life learnings to it, and they're going to develop solutions that you wouldn't have thought of. And that's a very rewarding experience, but it also, that helps you to expand your thinking about how to create things or how to solve problems. But if as a leader or as an educator, you're constantly trying to force your hand to control the outcome, to like get a particular thing, like you think you know what the answer is, but that's not really creativity on their part, like because that's not their answer to the question or the problem or the creative pursuit.
For me, I always want someone who can give me a feedback as well. The feedback is good, it's very important. You can be developing with the feedback. But it's not always right because the feedback and my opinion is always like against. So the thing is, I have to use the creativity to make it get along.
I do like feedback. It's not always easy to hear feedback because sometimes I think that it's not what you expected or you really had high hopes and this is making you rethink everything and you have to start over again. But I think when you're managing feedback, you have to manage the expectations as well. I think they go hand in hand. So like, what is the expected response and then how are you gauging based on what response you get? Or what is the expectation this drink is supposed to fulfill and how is that feedback potentially helping or harming that? There have been times where I have not agreed with feedback. I remembered creating a drink once and I took it to a chef and he said, oh, it needs more of X, Y, and Z. And I was like, okay, let me go do that and I'll be right back. And I took the drink and I walked through the prep kitchen a couple of times and I went up a staircase, came back downstairs and I put it back in front of them again. And I said, here you go. I added more X, Y, Z and they tasted it and they're like, it's perfect. And I went about my day knowing that I had created something that I knew was balanced and was correct. It's one of those situations where I just knew it wasn't gonna be the correct change. You really gotta decide also which points are important and which ones are really gonna make a difference. And if you're getting the same type of feedback from 5 different people that's the same thing, then yeah, maybe there's something wrong that you need to change or something that should be adjusted. But if you are confident in something and you wanna display that and you think that the feedback was kind of like relative and maybe it doesn't matter as much. I think that you're perfectly within your right to say, I'm going to dismiss that feedback and I'm going to move forward because I trust in my vision.
Ultimately, for me, I think that creativity is, yeah, there are aha moments that occur along the creative process, but it's called the creative process for a reason, not the creative aha. The aha comes as a result of constantly picking at it, and that's a difficult and can be a painful process of like, this didn't work, that didn't work, this failed, but like, oh, maybe there's a little bit of something here, and kind of constantly building back and forth off of something rather than like starting and like, oh, I hit a wall, like, fuck it, I give up, like, I don't know what to do, just try something completely different. So I think that it's important as a creator to know that the process is difficult and tumultuous and doesn't always yield the result when you want right away, of course. If you think that you're gonna have success the entire way from the start of the project to the end of the project, you're a fool. And what's gonna happen is if you insulate yourself from failure along the way, one is you're probably not doing anything original because you know all of the outcomes anyways. So you're not taking any risks, you're not being creative.
The failure always happen and it always improves us, not just only the drinks. It's about like the hospitality. If you talk to the customer this way, it's not good. Okay, you just learn and then don't do this again. I'm trying to tell my team about this failure, not too scared of it.
Out of personal experience, made a lot of mistakes along the way, on the way to get where I am. We have the opportunity to allow everyone to try and error, and then it's about like kind of leveling out.
I don't think that somebody should be out there cheering you on to fail, but I think that we should find a way to embrace them, especially in a creative field, because a lot of times it can lead to creating an even better product at the end of the day. And without failure, you never get to see the true potential of something.